Okay, we let it rest. Now we're going to get it prepped for our second rise, and I want to talk a little bit more about rises. I did an hour rise that time in a bowl on top of the stove. There are other ways you can do it. You can pop it in the oven with just the light on, nothing else, and your T-rag covering. That light bulb will generate just a little bit of heat in case you're, if it's wintertime, the house is cold or whatever, it'll help that rise. Another thing you can do, if time restraints, if you want to do the first part of this in the first rise overnight, you can cover the bowl, saran wrap, throw it in the refrigerator, let it sit overnight. Next morning, get it out, bring it up to room temperature, and start where we just started at. One advantage of that, one is time, if you don't have time all day to fool with bread, but two, when you put it in the refrigerator and let it do a slow rise, it gives that sourdough starter within that new flour to do its activation, and it'll actually add some flavor, so you may get a little stronger sourdough bread flavor if you put it in the refrigerator and let it rise, so that's good too. So now that we've done this, what we're going to do is make 2 loaves out of this. So I've got loaf pans over here, just regular metal loaf pans, and what I do with this is I just take some butter. Woo, this butter's soft. I want to coat my pan so when I put my dough in there it doesn't stick, number one. And number two, when you bake this bread in to help form that crust, it's really gonna be nice. So this butter's a little soft if you've been out of the refrigerator a little bit. But I just coat it good because when we get done baking this, we want that bread to fall right out of this loaf pan. We don't want it to stick and tear and be a mess. So make sure you get your corners. So there's that. And we're going to take this dough ball I have, and we're going to divide it in half. So we've made 2 loaves, right? Get that butter off my hands. So you can do other things with this recipe. You could make pizza crust. You could, my mom's friend pulls globs and just throws them on a cookie sheet. Let them come up as dinner rolls. I guess you could probably put them in cupcake pans or something and make nice little dinner rolls or something. So, first thing I want to do is wake this guy up. And I'm going to cut him in half. So I'm just going to take my cutter and divide it. I'll put that one over there out of the way. We'll get to him in a few minutes. I'll put a little more flour out just so I don't have too many issues while I'm working my dough, because now we're going to get this ready for the second rise in the loaf pan. So what you want to do is kind of pat it out with your fingers, and since it's happy, it won't get too thin on you. It keeps springing back and puffing up. But go ahead and try to spread that out best you can. And then you want to kind of pick it up. Remember, this stuff stretches, so if you pick it up, grab it by each corner and fold this corner down at an angle and fold this corner back at an angle, and kind of tap it and seal it so those layers reconnect. It becomes one again. Now if you look at it now, we've kind of made a triangle, right? That's why we stretched it and folded it. Folded it. All right, now what I want to do is I want to start at the top, kind of stretch and roll, kind of fold it. Go ahead and make that seam seal. Kind of looks like a crescent roll. And just keep folding it, or rolling it rather, and attaching it. And you see how clean the board is. That's why I put some flour down, otherwise it would have stuck. It's just about on the verge of sticking now. Now that I've got this roll kind of square off your ends. I'm gonna put just a tad more flour out. I'll show you why. I want to, a little bit of flour on the bottom, but I also want to, a little bit of flour on each end, okay? Now, if you look at this roll, there's your bottom seam. Make sure that's down, just plop it in. So there's that one. Now let's get this other one going. So you see what size it is in that pan. You got a good idea if you want this to double in size, right? You know what it's going to look like. It's got to fill that pan up a bit. So here we go. I'm kind of spreading it out with my fingertips, trying to get it to behave. Okay, I'm going to grab the two ears. I'm going to flop one that way, and I'm going to flop one that way like a triangle. Pack it back down, try to incorporate it back together. Okay, and then we're going to do this roll process again. This guy here got a little out of the little crooked. Yeah, it's coming together. I'm gonna fold it over and get that seam closed up, make it stick. And put us just a little bit of flour out so we seal those ends a little bit, seal the bottom, seal the end. Okay, bottom down. Here we go. Okay, so now you got your two loaves, right? I'm gonna do the same thing again. I'm gonna sprinkle just a tad bit of flour on it, just so my cloth doesn't stick, hopefully. And then this time I'm gonna pop them in the oven because my oven's cool. Just gonna pop them in there. Still got a damp tea cloth. Yeah, it's still pretty damp. We'll cover it. I'm gonna turn my light on. And I'm going to, it's the wrong light. I'm gonna turn my oven light on. And I'm gonna check it in about 30-40 minutes and see how it's doing, because if it wants to rise a second time in an hour, before we get to the top, I want to pull that tea cloth off and let it finish rising without the cloth. Don't know if it's necessary, but I don't want it sticking to the cloth. I don't want the cloth holding it down to where it spreads out instead of comes up. So we'll keep an eye on it, and then we'll be ready to bake. Okay, we're back at the Rich Ranch. Quarantine time. We're doing our sourdough bread. We've done our second rise. We're getting ready to check it. It's been in the oven. Let's see how we did. Okay, we filled our pans up real nice. This is an hour and a half on this second rise. Now I'm not crusting over the top like a traditional sandwich loaf would. I want to make a few suggestions to what we've already done. Baking bread is a modification. It's a process. Okay, I measured out 520 grams of flour. That's about 4 cups. Our recipe really calls for 4.5 to 5. I think if you boost that from 520 grams to 600, more dough probably would have crusted that loaf pan a little bit better, okay? Another thing that we did that I want to make an adjustment to is I put my salt in with my yeast and water in the bowl. I should have put the salt in with the flour, stirred it up and mixed it there, and then put it in. Whether it'll make a difference or not, I don't know, but you should have mixed your dry goods together and your wet goods, then put your dry in your wet. So there we go. So now what we're going to do now is I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to turn my oven on at 350, and I'm going to let it preheat with that bread in there. Okay, and one of the reasons why I'm going to do that is add a little heat to that. It's going to make it rise just a little bit more maybe. Once it comes up to 350, I'm going to bake it for 30 minutes. 30 minutes seems to work beautiful. We are going to use a thermometer and test it when we get done internal temperature. We want about 200 degrees. 30 minutes always works. Another thing you could do, you could put a pan of hot water in there, get it pretty much boiling when you stick it in there. That moisture will make you have a thicker, heartier crust. I find doing this type of bread, if you want it like a sandwich loaf, not to use the water because the crust turns out real nice like it is. So let's go ahead and bake it for 30 minutes and then we'll check it again. Okay, we've been in here 35 minutes. I went ahead and upped it. The aroma in the house is just awesome. I'm going to go ahead and use a thermometer and we're going to check internal temperature and see if we're done. If you want to take a look and see what we look like. And I'm just going to, woo, it's got a nice little crust. I'm going to stick it in there and you can see it's going up in temp real quick. And looks like we're probably going to be there. Oh yeah, we hit 200 or better, so that was 35 minutes. So, go ahead and take these bad boys out. Now, one of the things you can do also to tell if it's done or not is, you hear that? Okay, so I want to take them out of here right away. So see how that fell out, that buttered pan trick? Alright, now you can see we've got two really nice tall loaves. Like I said, I think if we put a little more flour in it to increase our dough, we could have got it to rise over the edge of the pan and formed a lip, which would have been kind of cool. We'll try that next. Now we're going to let this rest for like 15 minutes to 20 before we cut it. You should always do that. So we're going to let it rest and then we're going to try it out, see how we did. Alright. Let's see how we did. Now here's our loaf. You can tell it's pretty springy, so we're going to be soft inside. Remember when I dusted it with flour for that last rise? Flour here, so you want to go light, unless you like a floury bread when you get done, or if you wash your towel, you can skip that. So let's see how it's going to cut open. This is not a very good bread knife, but it's working. Now you can see how doughy it is. Look at the steam rise off of it. You see how doughy it is, and we've got plenty of good holes in it. Nice heel if you like the heel. Could have left it in there a little bit longer if you wanted a little darker crust. I'm going to use some of this butter I've got here and put on it. Now, there's a couple favorite ways to eat this stuff. I love peanut butter. Toast this and put peanut butter in it. Something about sourdough and peanut butter. Something about sourdough and apricot jam. I don't know what it is. Great grilled cheese, honey, just butter. It's addictive. You're gonna like it no matter what. I'm gonna make two pieces here. One for me and one for my imaginary friend. Holding that camera over there. So, sourdough 101 at the Rich Ranch. Now, remember, we want a nice, soft interior, lots of air pockets. Good aroma. Nice crust, real thin, but it's a nice crunchy crust. It doesn't get any better than that, folks. This stuff is addicting. That's it.